first think of the words foreign policy, what comes to your mind? Probably,
Ain't nobody got time for that.
yes. We know it sounds extremely boring and complicated, but what many people don't know is that foreign policy can be way more than just trade and diplomatic compromise between governments. Foreign policy is basically the way that different cultures and governments interact with each other. As a result of living in a place where such a diverse group of cultures dwell, there are many different forms of foreign policy, which can often create conflict.
Think of it this way. If you and a friend ate dinner at a nice restaurant, and your friend believed that you should pay for the entire meal and tip since they were the better friend, what would happen? There would be a problem. Well, the same idea applies to foreign policy. When two or more countries or groups individually think that they are superior to the others, it causes conflict. A perfect example of this scenario is shown in Chinua Achebe's famous novel, Things Fall Apart. It revolves around the culture of a Nigerian Igbo tribe in the village of Umafia, and it shows how they interact with other tribes and the European colonists and Christian missionaries who arrive in Nigeria. The values of Umafian men are important necessities to their foreign policy. In Things Fall Apart, it is admirable for men to be strong warriors, successful farmers, and wealthy, which is usually shown through a high quantity of huts, otherwise known as obis, wives, and children. The main character, Okonkwo, has all of these characteristics, so he is considered successful. An example of a failure in Umafian culture is Okonkwo's father, Anaka, who eventually dies of a strange disease and is brought to the evil forest where the dead are sent when they possess evil spirits. Unaka was a flute player and a lazy alcoholic. He put himself into a lot of debt by borrowing money from his friends and spending it all on alcohol instead of investing it into his farming or making sure his family was fed. As a result, Unaka will forever be looked at as a weak man. To sum this up, the men in Umafia valued strength, good farming skills, courage, and wealth, and if you did not have these characteristics, then you were considered worthless.
Now let's talk about the Europeans. The European colonists in Things Fall Apart initially arrived in Nigeria for their cheap labor and natural resources, but to make their motives look benevolent, they also decide that they will act as Christian missionaries and save the quote-unquote savages. The Christian missionaries think that they are morally superior to the Igbo. It is not that they necessarily want to help improve Igbo civilization, but instead they feel that the entire Igbo culture needs to be erased and rebuilt in the Christian model. Because the Europeans don't like that they are different and they serve false gods, the missionaries completely overlook any cultural richness that the Igbo contained before.
Now, we know that the Christian missionaries think that they are superior to the Igbo. And we know that the Igbo men care a lot about their strength and pride. The Igbo are also so fearless and strong that they are feared by all of their neighbors. So when you have both of these groups competing to be the one in charge and the one with the most power and influence, it causes them to interact with each other in a certain way. And this interaction is their form of foreign policy. So as the presence of the Christian missionaries increase and some of the Igbo begin to convert to Christianity, Okonkwo begins to become suspicious of them and decides that action will need to be taken to show the Europeans who is boss. Okonkwo and 6 leaders of the Umafian tribe decide to molest Christian missionaries and burn down their churches and houses. As a result of this, they are captured by the district commissioner, who is an authority figure and racist colonist. Him and 12 other men are beaten and forced to pay a fine. When they are let go, Umafia has a meeting to decide if they should go to war or not. The district commissioner sends court messengers to stop the meeting, and Okonkwo kills one thinking that Umafia will be behind him, but instead they back away in fear. Now we can see that the idea of foreign policy is just when groups make beneficial decisions that pertain to other groups, whether it is going to war, having meetings to make important decisions, or even allowing others to stay on the land that is owned. In today's Igbo culture, there has been a lot of compromise in the sense of religion. There is a mixture of religions, including that of Christian, Jewish, and Muslim faith. Still, there are many misconceptions of the Igbo that started with the European missionaries. They were called savages and treated like Neanderthals, and forced to accept new cultures and religions as their own. At the same time, they are still misunderstood today as a result of the way they reacted. They responded with violence and hatred. But what do you think you would do in a situation like the Igbo were in? If you grew up your whole life believing something, and a group of people showed up to tell you that everything you believed was a lie? All the important traditions, values, and the religion that was passed down in your family for generations was no longer an obvious way of life. Would you fight to save for what you believed in for so long, or give in to the overwhelming fear and doubt that you felt?